Hello and welcome to another edition of Lab Rats. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And this is the show where we demystify technology to show you how all those weird technology terms, how they work and what they are, and how to kind of make technology a better part of your life, right, Sean?
Always.
Right. And today on the show, we've been talking a lot about mobile phones lately. Really it is a mobile era. In fact, this is probably the year where, a lot of people are shifting their focus in terms of how they access the internet from, say, a computer to a tablet or a mobile phone. I mean, a lot of people these days are like switching over. Just, the phone is their primary source of internet connectivity.
I do a lot of my browsing and my email on the phone these days rather than on the desktop, so yeah.
And that's changed a lot in the last year or so, right?
Yeah, back a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to even try doing that because it was just such a terrible experience, so.
Now, we are big iPhone devotees here. We just love the iPhone. But the funny thing is, in the last 12 to 18 months or so, the market has been shifting. Apple really innovated in terms of kind of created the smartphone as a big mass market category. Mm-hmm. But Google's getting into the game, of course. They have an operating system called Android. As you can see right here, Sean's got an Android phone. And this has been a phenomenon. It has really come up fast. It is starting to nip at the heels and even, some say, taking over from the iPhone in terms of being the number one smartphone platform, in the world today.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, you see people talking about this all the time, and there's so many different companies getting into this space that just is starting to overwhelm the market, it seems.
That's right. So we thought, maybe it is time to switch to Android. Maybe it's time to chuck the iPhone and switch on over to Android.
Let's not get hasty here.
Well, today I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you should chuck your iPhone and switch to Android.
Okay.
I'm seriously thinking about it myself.
All right, well, I'm waiting to hear your reasons. Maybe I'll give some considered responses to
Right. Well,
we'll
hopefully
see.
By the end of the show, both of us will be in agreement. We're going to be chucking our iPhones and going to Android. So that's coming up today on Lab Rats. Well, welcome back to Lab Rats. Before we get started, of course, between why you should dump your iPhone and switch on over to Android, I want to tell you a bit about our sponsor, Hover.com, one of our sister companies here at the Two Cows family of companies. If you want your own web domain, you're thinking about starting your own website, you want your own vanity email, go on over to Hover.com, pick a domain, .com, right? .tv. What else do they have?
.co.uk, .tv, I think you said that.
.ca.
.ca, .info.
.eu, I think, is a new one, too.
There's a whole pile of them.
Anyway, you can pick up, your domain, register it, very affordable. And, the number one thing about these guys is really good customer service. It's really hard to deal with all these, like, MX records and DNS and all kinds of crazy things. And Hover makes it really simple. And if you call them for help, you get to talk to somebody who lives here in Canada. There's a call center actually down the street. They actually don't even let you go to voicemail. They'll pick it up on the first few rings. So you actually get to talk to somebody quickly. It's one of their service guarantees. That's why we really like them. So we hope you'll try them out. We're big customers ourselves. We're going to give you a coupon code right here to get you started so that you can get the Hover experience. And you'll find that it is the best choice if you're talking about domains or customized email and that sort of thing. So check it out, hover.com. All right. Now let's get started on this. So you're ready to defend the iPhone vigorously, are you?
We'll see. I really like my iPhone 4 quite a bit. I'm used to the platform and all the stuff I can do with it. I'm not anti-Android so much as I need to be convinced to move over to Android because my whole life is on the iPhone.
Yeah.
You can't just say, okay, just dump everything you've been doing for the last few years and just move to this new platform. You got to convince me, sir.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll take it one step at a time. Let's go through 5 reasons why. First of all, I would want to characterize this though by it feels almost like the Mac versus Windows kind of conversation that we were having for years on this show, right? Mm-hmm. Android versus iPhone, and I'm not really completely willing to move away from my iPhone. I just kind of got to it, but I got to say, increasingly there are really good reasons why you'd want to do this. So number 1, let's start with the Android marketplace. Let's really, in the world of the hardware does matter, but in the grand scheme of things, what you really care about is your apps. So on the iPhone side, there's the App Store. Mm-hmm. On the Android store, it's called Marketplace. And the Marketplace really has been a real differentiator here in terms of Android versus iPhone because it has been a lot less stringent about what goes in there. So that Steve Jobs and his minions of like deciders aren't filtering all of the apps that go in to be available to you, right? So he's not worrying. There's no morality police, mm-hmm. And hardcore as it is Apple, it's pretty ugly sometimes. Sometimes for good use, but really, so there's On the marketplace side, sexier apps sometimes, things that are a little outside of mainstream, a little cutting edge, things that would be kind of naughty at times, things like that. There's a lot less policing going on.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think that's always bothered me a little bit about the iTunes App Store is that they tend to not even let you go to these things. Like a lot of times it would be like, okay, you're about to enter a mature area of this website, or you're about to launch a mature app. Do you really want to do this? And just sort of let people make their own judgments about this sort of thing. But in a lot of cases, as you say, they've just sort of said, nope, not at all. Nobody
No
can touch this.
bikinis allowed.
Kids can't see this, therefore nobody can.
Yeah.
So that has bothered me a bit, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should, as grown-ups, we should be allowed, there should be allocations to allow us to see the ratings and to filter by rating, but, don't make that choice for me. And so the marketplace is a great thing for that. There's more than 150,000 apps in the marketplace right now. Nobody's sitting there basically blessing some apps and getting rid of other ones. So I got to tell you that from that perspective, like freedom of speech and nobody deciding for us, I think the marketplace is a good reason to switch from iPhone to Android.
Well, okay, here's the other side of the story, though. So, yeah, it's true that there's definitely somebody in a dark room at Apple headquarters looking over this app and saying, no, not that app, for whatever reason, and sometimes they're very mysterious. But at the same time, the fact that you actually have someone paying close attention to this, as you said at the top, is not as stringent over in the world of the Android marketplace. Therefore, a lot of stuff can get through that you basically don't want on your Android phone because it's malware. There's already been a couple of incidences out there in the wild of people throwing stuff into their applications that just is not good. Privacy breaches, security breaches, even potential of viruses or things that will actually harm your hardware or the firmware on your hardware. So the fact that it's not as stringent is a selling point in some ways, but from an overall security perspective, maybe not so much.
Yeah. Understand.
So I would say that if you're not really in a big hurry to put boobies on your phone, maybe the iTunes Store is still the best way to go because you're going to be sure that someone's actually paying attention to it and
or pectorals.
Or pectorals.
There are ladies out there who like their pectorals.
Sexy apps of all sorts. But yeah, so they're paying attention to this, and anything that looks a little bit dubious, they're saying no to.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of false positives in there, but it's better than a bunch of bad stuff slithering through and hurting you.
True. So. To Google's defense, when those nasty apps have been found, they act pretty quickly and they expunge them from the marketplace. So they actually are. There is a police force, but you're right. There is there's a darker side to that as well. So.
Yeah. Speaking of the Windows versus Mac campaign, Mac always prided itself on security, and that sort of moved forward into the phone.
world.
And Android is a little bit more open source and Wild West, where a lot of other stuff can get through, and you're sort of taking your chances.
That's
in
true.
some ways.
Okay, moving on to number 2. So reason number 2 why you'd want to switch from your iPhone to Android is choices of hardware.
Yes.
Right? So in the iPhone world, you have one model that's current, you have one model that's come previously and is at a lower price, and that's pretty much it. You usually have a choice of 2 models, the older one and the newer one.
No. You also have the choice of how much memory you get in this.
You get, yes. Oh, wow. That's a real differentiator. What happens if you want a keyboard?
You use the keyboard on here.
Yeah, and what if you don't
use a Bluetooth
What if you
keyboard?
want? You could do that too.
Okay, so there's not a lot of hardware variety here.
That's the point, right? There is not a lot of hardware choices. In the Android world, HTC makes them, Acer makes them, Motorola's making them. Everybody and their brother is making an Android phone right now.
We've got a bunch of different kinds here.
Sony Ericsson is making, premium version of it and that sort of thing. So, so really, you're getting good choice. You're getting different form factors, big screens, small screens, keyboards, no keyboards, those kinds of things. There's lots of choice. So,
yes.
If you're switching from a BlackBerry, for example, and you really want the keyboard, you're not going to go to the iPhone. You're not going to like the on-screen virtual keyboard. What you're going to want to do is go into the Android world and pick something that has a keyboard so you can transition nicely over to it.
Yeah, and then the other nice thing about this, I will admit, is the fact that in a lot of cases here, you can swap your battery out. You can take the back off of this thing. You have access to external memory cards where you can store extra information and like music and other things like that.
Yeah.
So you do have more
choices.
variety, more hardware choices.
Well, and the other thing, of course, is because there are competitors in this space, from a hardware perspective, it's going to drive competition, right? So, you're actually going to have, competition. It's going to drive the pricing down. It's going to be a much more competitive marketplace. You can get more innovation in terms of the physical hardware and that sort of thing. So, good reason. And I get that, Apple's trying to keep costs down, keep it simple, keep single form factors and that sort of thing. And I think perhaps we'll see them diversify moving forward, but you're never going to get the volume and the variety that you do in the Android marketplace.
Yeah. Now, that said, so with Apple being a single source supplier of this, you have better quality control over the hardware itself. So you have a design that's designed to work together, and this is your design. Maybe you have a little bit more memory, but they know it works for the most part. When you move into the world of Android, you have a whole pile of different configurations, a whole pile of little wingdings added on, different cameras, different slots for your secure digital. So there's different points for things to go wrong in there if you've got a slightly flaky design in there.
Right. Feels like Windows versus Mac again, doesn't it?
Feels like Windows versus Mac. And the other thing about it, of course, again, with Apple being your sole supplier, is just when you have an update for the firmware, a new version of iOS, they punch it out and you can download it. With this, when you're using Motorola and you've got Sony Ericsson, you've got HTC, they all have slightly different versions of the Android operating system that are designed for their phones, that are skinned for their particular branding, and they have slightly different utilities that are on there. So in some cases, you might have a new version of the Android operating system. For example, some older phones were at 1.7, and then of course 2 came out, and 2.1 and 2.2, and yet some of these old ones are still sitting there on 1.7.
So you can't upgrade them easily because of the hardware limitations.
Well, it's not the hardware limitations so much as you have to wait for these manufacturers to get around to updating them. So even though we're talking now about gingerbread and we're talking about honeycomb coming, well, some of these phones won't be able to do that until Motorola or HTC gets around to updating those versions of the firmware for their phones.
Just like you can't run Windows 7 on an old Pentium.
Yeah, kind of, and just like just imagine you have a computer that was locked into a very specific branded version of Windows. Now that hasn't been the case, but in the case of Android, sometimes you have to wait for Motorola to do it rather than Android to release a new version of it.
Right. Okay.
So that can be a real bit of a pain in the butt. Now you can root the phones, and we've talked about that in an earlier episode, and then you can actually update to the newest version. But that's a bit of a pain in the butt, and it becomes a little bit more Wild West because of that.
Very true. Good.
So
let's move on to the topic of the internet. So certainly, you can browse the internet. It's one of the primary things you're going to do on these phones is use apps, but browse the internet and you consume the internet in a way that you want to consume it. One of the big advantages, and I say number 3, why you'd want to switch from your iPhone to your Android phone is Flash support. So Flash, of course, being that kind of feature of the web that can show animation and show all kinds of sort of multimedia type of content. On the iPhone, Steve Jobs has decided no Flash support on the iPhone. So you can actually come to a web page that has Flash loaded, page doesn't work. So Android, it does. It supports anything from version 2.2 onwards supports Flash, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Counterpoint?
Bragging about supporting Flash is a little bit about bragging that your Windows 7 machine supports programs written for Windows 95. It really is an old type of format for the web that's going out of style really fast. And the reason that's...
Only because Steve Jobs says so, though.
The reason Steve Jobs said that is because on iOS devices and on a lot of other devices, to be fair, Flash is a hog for
memory
resources.
Yeah,
it's a memory hog.
But Adobe offered to make a mobile version of it, so it would work optimized. And Steve's like, talk to the hand, talk to Steve Jobs' hand. I don't want to talk to you.
I'll believe it when I see it that they provide that. It's been a resource hog on a number of different platforms, and it's just when you're dealing with a mobile device, something that claws back your battery that quickly, I don't think is a good idea to have on the phone. And seriously, Flash is yesterday's technology in a lot of ways. I mean, I get the fact that there's a lot of stuff out on the web that uses Flash for web interfaces, and I'm saying, get with the program, guys. It's time to go to HTML5. It does all the things that Flash does for the most part, and it is cross-platform. It works on the iPhone. It works pretty much anywhere you want to go, and it has a much lighter touch on the processor.
I got it. Okay, there you go. There's a counterpoint. Reasonable counter-argument, I got to say. Reasonable counter-argument, but still, it's just the internet's not the same without Flash.
Only because people let it.
Okay, got it. Let's move on to open platform. Let's talk about it being, so Android is a really robust open platform. It is not closed. It is not, the mobile version of the Kremlin. There is funny thing, Apple will not let you inside their walls in terms of their technology. You cannot modify. You can certainly, what do they call the term here when you actually when you potentially could brick the phone? You can root it, yeah, you can root the iPhone,
You
right?
root it or crack it or whatever.
Yeah, jailbreak it. You can, that's the
Jailbreak
word I
it,
was
yeah.
looking for. Jailbreak. So you can jailbreak the iPhone and you can actually sideload stuff and that sort of thing. But really, the Android operating system is designed for that. You can mess with the firmware. You can put custom apps on there. You do not have to bow to the gods of Google just to get the thing that you own to do what you want it to do. Mm-hmm. Now, that certainly, gives all kinds of flexibility to the hobbyists. For people that really, for the innovators, there's all kinds of things that you can do. And it's just nice to be able to get in there and tinker just like the Windows world.
Yeah. Yep, definitely nice for the enthusiasts who want to really get underneath the hood. Right. And I get that. I get the experience and why people would be into that. I was a Windows user for a long time, and I loved getting in and playing with the hardware, playing a little bit with the software, and doing things to it that weren't necessarily intended by Redmond.
Right.
But yeah, when you go into those situations where you jailbreak your phone or root it, you always get into the situation where you can expect hijinks. So it's an enthusiast sort of thing. So if you're an enthusiast and you know what you're doing, by all means, feel free to do that. But of course, if you're just an average user, you can open yourselves to a lot of really bad stuff by doing that.
That's true.
So when you root your phone and put on these other applications that aren't necessarily even in the marketplace, you can load in anything you want, and you can really mess with your phone that way. Mm-hmm. You can wreck it completely.
You could,
and just the way you can with the iPhone.
So you're saying that the iPhone, the sort of the safeguards they put on you, messing it up because of you, is actually a value proposition.
It is a value proposition in a lot of ways. I think
we're saving you from you because you're an idiot.
We're saving you from you.
Dear customer, we hate you. You're stupid.
You are stupid. No, it's not even that. I think most people don't even want to think about how something runs, and when you give them a bunch of control of things under the hood, then it's just a way to, like, what would you do if you had access to all the fine tuning for your car? You'd start tinkering with it and you'd wreck it.
I do, and I have.
Yes, so don't do it.
Okay.
That one I'm going to argue less strenuously because I get the appeal.
You get the appeal, right? Yeah, exactly. Especially for the lab rats audience out here. Oh my God.
Oh, definitely. Well, all of you guys out there, you're capable of handling that for sure.
Absolutely. So. It's my mom that doesn't want to tinker with her Android phone.
Don't let her root her Android phone.
No, that's right. Mom, stop it. Go back and bake a pie. Don't mess with your Android phone. Come on, honey.
We're going to get some email now.
No, I'm serious. I'm talking about my mom, not your mom. All right. Finally, the final nail in the coffin, I think, is this real multitasking issue. So on an Android phone, if you want to run a program and put it into memory, you can do that. And then if you want another one, you can do that too. You can actually put lots of applications running at the same time in memory.
Yeah, but you can do that on the iPhone now.
It's pretend. It's virtual multitasking. It's like putting it in and then putting it on pause. Wait a second while I do my GPS over here. It really is kind of lame. Now, there must be an advantage to that on the iPhone side.
Yes. Yeah, now again...
Steve Jobs had threw a tantrum and didn't want to...
No, I get again why people would want true multitasking on their phones, because they want to do several things, have something running in the background and continuing to work away while they're doing something else. Now, on the iPhone, there are some apps that will do that. So if you interface with the developer's kit when you're writing your software, there's certain functions that will allow that. So like the GPS functionality, if you tap into it properly, you can actually run it in the background and continue to multitask while something else is running. Other things, not so much, because they're not necessarily things that really need to multitask. Now, the reason that Steve Jobs has done this, and I say Steve Jobs sort of as the Apple engineering team, in substitution for that. But the reason they do that is because when you're running so many things on your phone at the same time, you'll forget about some of them. Like open up your iPhone and go into the multitasking menu and find out how many things are just sitting there. There's a lot of them. Now imagine if they were all actually actively running. What would your battery life be like?
Probably not very good.
Yeah, you'd die in about an hour or 2 hours.
Fair enough.
Maximum, as opposed to being able to use your phone for most of a day.
Yeah, fair enough.
So by restricting actual multitasking, they actually give you a better user experience.
Better battery optimization?
Yeah, so I mean, theoretically, if you forget about something that's running on your Android phone that's running in the background, you've gone to take a phone call and that thing that was sort of accessing the GPS is still going in the background, well, say goodbye to your battery life.
I got it.
You're going to be charging up in about an hour.
Real multitasking on the Android operating system. Real multitasking, not Steve Jobs' version of quasi-multitasking.
Real battery killing.
That's right, real battery killing. All right. Thank you for that. That's awesome. 5 reasons why you should switch from your iPhone to your Android. That's today on Lab Rats. Hope you enjoyed that. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we've got Clip of the Week and your pictures. That's after this. Welcome back to Lab Rats. So during the break, Sean decided that he was going to give his iPhone away. So you can win it by emailing us at...
Andy's a damn liar at labrats.tv.
No, that was good. That was a reasonable, fun argument.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm not convinced yet.
Not convinced yet.
I still like my iPhone too much, and the value proposition of Android is getting better all the time.
Yeah. Well, of course, iPhone 5 will be out probably in the fall.
iPhone 5 will be out at some point soon, and maybe not in the fall, but it's coming.
And
And
I bet it's the
we'll
fall.
see.
Anyway, yeah, we'll see. All right, good. So let's, at this point in the show, we show you something fantastic on the Butterscotch.com network. So we want you to zip on over there. So today we have, speaking of Android, a clip of the week from Andrew Moore Crispin, who does the show and he was recently at the Motorola Atrix launch, which is the brand new, hot, super fantastic Android phone from Motorola. So let's take a quick look at that. When we come back, we have your pictures.
Welcome on deck. I'm Matt Harris.
Hi, I'm Jay Goldman.
Welcome to the A-List.
Hi, welcome to Miss Download.
So now the phone is super cool. I do like the
phone
phone, but there's kind of a whole nother layer to the Atrix. So why don't we bust out the laptop?
Absolutely. So the other aspect of what we've got with the Atrix is something called the Motorola WebTop solution. And WebTop was created to provide a more interactive mobile computing experience, taking what you can do on the phone and extending it off the glass of the phone and through either the lap dock, which you see here, and we'll talk about this, or the HD dock, be able to extend your experience, whether it's gaming, whether it's computing, whether it's browsing, just extend that onto a larger screen and have the external keyboard capability.
If you want to see the whole episode of that, go on over to butterscotch.com, click on Butterscotch TV, and that's in the episode, the show called At, so you'll be able to find that fairly easily.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's a cool little device, all the little accessories you can get for it for hooking up to your TV. I like that.
It's kind of cool. You know, it's kind of the future where things are going with mobile phones and smartphones. I suspect at some point we'll see an Appleized version of something along that line. We'll see. All right, good. Picture of the week. You have one, I understand.
We have one picture today,
good,
so
okay.
make sure that you send your pictures if you've been thinking about it and haven't done it yet. Go ahead and do it. Our queue's getting a little bit low right now.
Okay.
So send her along. So this one right here is from Horacio, who is in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
So cute.
And this is his dog, Linda.
Linda the dog.
Linda the
I
dog.
like when people name their pets with like human names. I've always wanted to have a dog called Howard. I just think it's just a great name for a dog. You know, everybody's calling the children names that they would call their pets before.
Yeah.
You know, Fluffy, Rover Walker, and it's like a 4-year-old shows up.
You're naming your kids that?
Well, some people are.
I named my snake Andy. Anyways, Horatio made a comment
Yes.
that he thinks he's the first foreign person to send in a picture. And Horatio, I hate to tell you this, you're not actually the first person from outside Canada or the U.S. to do so.
No.
But you are one of the very few, so thank you very much for doing that. If you're outside Canada and the U.S. and you want to send a picture, please do so. We'd love to see where you are and you know, the people you're with and the pets you're with as well.
That are called Linda.
That are called Linda or Bob or Andy.
Steve the dog.
Or send a picture of your daughter Rover.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you can send your pictures in to...
Rover's a great name for your kid, no matter what anybody else says, at labrats.tv.
Yeah, if you want to type it faster, you could use...
Feedback at labrats.tv. So where's the fun in that?
There's no fun in that. All right. Well, that's it for us. We hope you enjoyed the show this week. You know, it'd be foolish for us to be sitting here telling you why you should get an Android if you weren't out there going, I spent $500 on my iPhone and I want a new one.
Or something.
Or something like that. My name's Andy Walker,
I'm Sean Carruthers.
and we'll see you next time.
Are you ready? Try this at home.
That is